How's it going, everyone? NuttyNu. I'm going to teach you guys 5 tips to make your videos more cinematic and just looks a little bit more professional. Tip number 1, when you're shooting your videos or when you're editing your video, make sure that your timeline is in a 24 frames per second. So make sure that when you export that video out, the final product is going to be 24 frames per second. And make sure that when you're out shooting and stuff like that, any scenes that doesn't have to be creative in slow-mo, make sure you shoot it in 24 frames per second. Or if you're shooting creative style, like 60 frames, so you can slow it down later in post, make sure you do 60 frames or whatever you need to do. And then make sure your main timeline is out in 24 frames per second. That's tip number 1. I see a lot of people don't do that. So make sure your timeline is in 24 frames per second if you're trying to go for that cinematic look. Next tip is make sure you add some letterbox. Letterbox is two black bars that goes on the top and on the bottom, and just makes your video a little bit more better, because in the theater world, that's what they use. If you go buy a video or a movie and you're watching your big screen TV, you'll see the aspect ratio, and it just gives that cinematic look versus going full screen and stuff like that. There's a time where full screen is good for like documentary, like National Geographic, Nat Geo and stuff like that, or stuff like that. And then make sure you also don't use the letterbox wrong too, because a lot of people will add letterbox to like videos that shouldn't be letterbox, like business promo, stuff like that. So make sure you use it for like cinematic videos and stuff like that. Third number tips is make sure your shots, when you're shooting your videos and stuff like that, make sure they're on tripods or they're smooth and stuff like that. Don't make them shaky unless they're meant to be shaky. Like for example, for a music video, you can have it rocking back and forth, but just make sure that the camera movement is intended for that, whatever it is doing, so when the audience view it, they don't question it and ask like, why is it so shaky, or why is this shot so shaky, I can't focus. So that's tip number 3. Tip number 4 is having depth to your videos. So a lot of people, they like to just shoot wide angles, or they like to shoot at like f8, f11, where everything's in focus. And what depth is like I'm in focus and the back is blurred out. This happens when you use like 35mm, 50mm, or long focal lengths, and you're shooting like f1.8, f2.8, f4, and it looks really good. So just make sure when you're getting like detail shots and stuff like that, close-up shot, make sure you have a lot of depth to your shots. And it's good to add depth and wide angle and just a little bit of everything depending on what you're doing. So make sure you add depth to your shots. The last tip, tip number 5, is make sure that your video is properly graded or has a consistent look to it. So when people watch it, it doesn't change from like black and white to fully saturated to kind of washed out. Make sure it's consistent. And if you go watch a lot of videos, people have the consistent color depending on what the video they're doing. So make sure it has a consistent color, and it doesn't matter if you're not good at color grading, as long as you have a consistent color, it just looks good. So if you're doing like a black and white video, keep it black and white. And the other thing is that for letterbox, I see a lot of people do this. They add letterbox, and then there's like 2-3 scenes where they take off the letterbox, it goes back to full screen, and then goes back to a letterbox. So I don't know why they do that. Don't do that unless you're doing like a video like this where you're comparing it to show the audience. But if you're doing like a professional video, keep it consistent, keep the letterbox throughout the whole video, keep the color grade throughout the whole video. So that's the 5 tips to help your videos look more cinematic. Hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys can add on to this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.